I've never rode a bike to the grocery store before.
And I almost never walk to the park. And if you live in America, you can probably relate. America is one of the most obese countries in the world. But why is that?
Why don't we all look ripped like the guys I see in those high school fitness videos from the 40s? Did those people just work harder and go to the gym more than us? No, they didn't.
While the popularity of fast food, use of filler ingredients, and even larger portion sizes have played a role, there's an even greater cause most people haven't considered. How our cities are designed not for the people who live in them, but for the cars we use to get around. Since the 1900s, our cities have become less and less pedestrian friendly, and the consequences have been drastic. And if we don't make a reversal soon, America's public health crisis will only get worse. My name is Noah Double Sunglasses Hume, and this is how our cities make us fat. If you live in America, there are probably a couple of things that come to mind when you think of the average American city.
Walkable. Many viable transportation methods. In tune with nature. Just kidding. More like car hell.
No grocery stores in walking distance, never taking public transport because it's inconvenient, and I don't blame you. I don't either. But due to things like land mismanagement, restrictive zoning laws, and the gutting of public transport, owning a car in the US isn't a luxury anymore, but a necessity. Look at this parking lot. Look at it! It's huge!
But cities didn't always used to be like this. For over 100 years, we have been on the path to total car dependence. For most of human history, cities grew organically around their population, including in the US.
People built their communities as they grew rather than entire areas being developed overnight. We used to build things at a human scale. Whatever city you live in, check out what it looked like 100 years ago.
You will probably be surprised how different it is. But then we made a choice. Technology advanced, and with the rise of the car in the early 1900s, we started to redesign our cities, building them for cars instead of people. Many cities in the US used to have tram systems, but early in the century, most tore them out, including my city, Provo, Utah, to expand and improve roads for car use. Because if you couldn't take your brand spanking new Model T everywhere, then what was the point? Overall investment in public transport began to decrease and has fallen ever since. And after World War II, with the rise of car-dependent suburbs and more aggressive zoning laws around the country, the problems we see today really took root. People live in giant residential zones with nothing but houses for miles, and most of the places you need or want to go are 10+ minutes away by car, and good luck getting there any other way.
Public transport was given the old Yeller treatment, neighborhoods were gutted, and as a result, the option to walk has been stolen from us. You'd think people would be upset about this, but most people don't even know that it happened.
The funny thing about this is most people don't even particularly like driving. They wouldn't describe it as a relaxing or pleasant experience. But even though people aren't in love with driving, most look at taking public transport or walking as something to do only if you have no other choice.
We've created a feedback loop. Because we have cars, we build things further apart. And because we build things farther apart and public transport sucks, everyone drives everywhere. So then we build things even farther apart because people can just drive there. And then, because everybody's already driving everywhere, we just keep building things even further apart. But you get the idea.
When your shopping looks like this, and your train station looks like this, nobody wants to be without a car to get anywhere. What's so frustrating is that my town used to build shopping like this, and our train station used to look like this. Maybe those ripped high schoolers were so fit because they walked to school uphill both ways and their campus wasn't 50% parking lot.
But Noah, you might ask, what about biking?
Or taking the bus. Those are still options, right? To which I ask you this. Have you seen how people drive? Have you seen the bike lanes in most cities?
For example, this is University Avenue, a main street in Provo. It's a high-activity street that passes right through the heart of town, has lots of businesses, and if you're going anywhere, you'll probably end up taking it. Seems like a good candidate for a safe and protected bike lane, right? Wrong. This is the bike lane, and I am shitting my pants standing here right now trying to film this.
So if I want to bike, I'm either risking my life biking on the road, because if you've seen how the people in Utah drive, you'd know tailgating is a proud Utahn tradition, or maybe I'm on the sidewalk dodging pedestrians, both less than ideal options.
And even if there is a dedicated bike lane, it probably looks something like this.
But buses! If you don't have a car, buses are better than nothing. That's true. The problem lies in convenience and accessibility. Bus routes in most cities like Provo are very limited, whether the lines only go to specific areas instead of being a fast network, or don't come very often, say every 30 minutes. There are a lot of extra steps to planning how to go where you want to go. So ultimately, bikes are super dangerous and public transport is infrequent and doesn't arrive at the places you need to go. In this system we have built for ourselves, all other options are horribly inconvenient. Driving is the only realistic option, and our health has suffered for it.
In the academic article, The Weight of Place, the authors discuss how the built environment affects our health. The built environment is everything that we've constructed. Roads, houses, stores, bike lanes, parks, public transport, etc.
And how we design and structure our built environment makes a huge difference for our health. These researchers found that the single thing that had the largest impact on rates of diabetes, obesity, and other health risks was walkability of neighborhoods.
If someone lived in a walkable neighborhood, they were 30 to 50% less likely to develop diabetes and 54% less likely to be diagnosed with high blood pressure. That big. And as this graph shows, American obesity rates have steadily risen since the 1960s, coinciding pretty cleanly with the rise of the suburb. So walkable neighborhoods are important for our health. But what actually makes a neighborhood walkable? For starters, mixed-use zoning is allowed, meaning that rather than having one type of land use in the whole area, you might allow different kinds together. For example, you might have a coffee shop on the bottom floor and apartments on the top floor, or a neighborhood grocery in the middle of a neighborhood. The problem is, in most cities in the US, you don't see this anymore because of overly restrictive zoning regulations. Places like Provo's beloved downtown, you can't build these anywhere today. It's illegal.
Instead, what we've created for neighborhoods are huge suburbs that only allow single-family homes on every lot. No corner markets, no sidewalk cafes, and no bakeries. But that's a topic for another video. Walkable neighborhoods also have a well-connected street network. Do your streets have a nice grid, or lots of long, curvy roads that don't connect well to other roads?
Walkable neighborhoods also have robust public transportation networks to facilitate travel to other areas, like the streetcar networks that used to be everywhere. They call this active transport. All that means is that some or all of the journey is people-powered. Whether you're walking to the bus stop or riding your bike somewhere, that small amount of physical activity can make a huge difference. And when you can fold that into your daily commute, that can make a big difference long-term.
But because America has systematically removed that option, the obesity crisis has become the most deadly health risk in the country. So what's our plan? Change nothing? Leave fitness as something only accessible to those with plenty of time on their hands or the money to devote to nutritionists and personal trainers? You can predict the outcome of that. You looked at the same graph I did. I consider America's obesity crisis a systematic issue. What's good about that is that it's fixable. And I'm here to show you how our system sucks and why we should fight for change. To demonstrate this, I'm going to be taking a walk through Provo.
Here I am at an apartment complex in Provo, and we're going to be taking a walk to the nearest grocery store, which is a neighborhood Walmart about a mile away. A good example on the walk, actually, of some decent walkability infrastructure here. A little greenery on a walk never hurts, so that's awesome. I think we're about halfway through our walk to Walmart. It was going pretty smoothly up to this point, and once we reach a certain point, the sidewalk ends. And the goofy thing here is that you can actually see, the tread path where people are making this journey. So you'd think maybe there'd be some incentive to have a sidewalk here. And also, there's no way to cross here. So once I've made this cross from over there, unless I want to wait to go through traffic again, I can't cross here. So that's not optimal. Okay, the dirt path, it wasn't great. It's not a sidewalk, but it's better than what we're about to do, which is the sidewalk ends at this bridge. There's a river over there, so we can't squeeze our way on the inside, and we're going to be walking in this little, 5-foot gap with the cars going about 40 miles an hour, which I'm not going to feel super good about doing, but we're going to do it.
Yes, the trip was doable, but it sucked. I definitely wouldn't do it again. If you aren't in a car, American cities don't really care much about how you're going to get places. I'm not anti-car. I have a car, which I love, but cars are a tool. I shouldn't need to drive everywhere, especially if it's a very reasonable distance, like 1 mile. So now you've seen a first-hand example of how modern American city design makes doing anything without a car pretty difficult. And this is shown by how many people you see actually using other methods of transport. When I'm driving, even if it's a beautiful day, I very rarely see people walking or biking. And I only know a handful of people who walk or bike by choice. Usually it's because they don't own a car or are really specifically doing it for exercise.
Everyone I know who exercises chooses to do so at a gym, and every time I go to the gym, there are lots of people running on the treadmills, even though there's hardly anyone walking or running on the streets outside, even when it's a beautiful day. Exercise has become a luxury rather than something we can fold into our daily trips, because in most cities, using the public space to exercise is so unpleasant or inconvenient that we would rather go to a space designed for it, even if we have to pay a monthly subscription to do it.
I'm a certified personal trainer, and one of the biggest struggles my clients had was when to fit in their exercise. If they had a family, worked a 9 to 5, or had a long commute, it was a massive sacrifice to find the time to drive to the gym and get in an hour-long workout. The inconvenience of the whole thing made it very hard for many people to stick with it or find time for it consistently. And since that was the only physical activity in a day most of them got, many of them weren't able to accomplish their fitness goals without it.
Now, I used to think that people just needed to sacrifice more, work a little harder. I realize now I was silly and foolish. Yes, if you want to be a bodybuilder or a power lifter, you're going to have to get into the gym and lift some weights. But most people don't care about that. They just want to look good, lose some weight, and be healthy. Now, if you're like me, the hardest part about exercise is getting to the gym in the first place. And science and I both agree on the benefits of exercise and how much of that sweet dopamine that it releases. But most people don't like exercising just for the sake of exercising.
And think about it. From an evolutionary standpoint, we aren't really designed to needlessly expend energy. Our ancestors weren't spending 2 hours a day needlessly moving stuff and running in circles to stay healthy. They didn't live in the time of massive food surplus that we do now. They used the energy they had to survive and then they relaxed. We just aren't hardwired to want to expend energy needlessly. Our current built environment goes against everything in our physiology. However, if we could fold that exercise into other purposes like commuting, it starts to be less counterintuitive. The average American currently gets less than 5,000 steps a day. People in cities that are more walkable average closer to 9,000 steps per day. And that small change in daily activity level goes a long way towards solving our biggest health crisis. There is a real human cost to the design and policy choices we have made, but we can change things for the better. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. There are plenty of other modern-day models we can look to for inspiration. I got to visit another country once, and they had this walkability thing figured out. I was there for 5 days, and every place I needed to go, I could walk the whole way or walk to a bus to get there. It was convenient, and it was enjoyable.
And there are plenty of American cities that used to be more people-centric as well. The health crisis is a huge problem, but not an unsolvable one. Yes, we might have made really bad choices over and over again for like 100 years, but the good news is it is still fixable.
If you're interested in reaching out to your local representative and letting them know that you want more walkable neighborhoods, here's how I would do it. Google your city name's city council and click their website, find out who represents your district, and reach out respectfully using our handy-dandy email template that's attached in the description. In future videos, I'll talk about other policy issues that affect America, so if that sounds interesting, subscribe.